Hello everyone, back again. Kieran from Speaking Spurs, talking all things Tottenham, and it is time to talk transfer window and something that Antonio Conte has come out and said that's quite interesting. Alright, so from my perspective, I would say at the beginning to the mid part, successful transfer window. Towards the end, like many other Spurs fans, a bit disappointed. Obviously, the last day of the window where normally we get something done or like a big rumour comes about, nothing happened. There were a few names floated about, but yeah, disappointing day for us. It was more about getting players out the club, and I think the biggest disappointment was probably for one of our players. Brian Hill thought he was going to go out on loan again where he can get a lot of football, so he was included in the squad for the first 3 Premier League games of the season, and then he wasn't included for the next 2 games, and I think we thought that's because he was going out on loan. So it'll be interesting to see if he's included for the squad for the games coming, and if he actually gets a chance, because I think he can be a good player if he bulks up a little bit. At the moment he's a bit too slight, but he's got lots of traits that are very good. So Antonio Conte says that Tottenham are at a disadvantage this season because they're unable to spend the same sums of money on signings as their rivals, and need 3 more windows before they can compete. Now, we did spend quite a bit. We were, we'll speak about that in a sec, but essentially Chelsea spent 278.4 million. That's a lot of money. And we were praised for getting the stuff done early, the signings in, and we actually ranked 4th in terms of spenders. But yeah, Chelsea led the table, 278.4 million. Man United spent 227.4 million, and West Ham 179.2 million, making West Ham the 3rd biggest spenders in the league. We come in 4th with 172 million. But if you look at that, Chelsea spent more than 100 million more than us, and this is what Conte's getting at, like what you can buy in terms of a player with another 100 million. That's an amazing player and probably a youth prospect coming at the same time, or 2 relatively good squad players. That is the difference in money there. But Conte says not enough was invested in proven players compared to their rivals for Spurs to be considered contenders this season. And he's absolutely right. We've signed some proven players at the beginning. We've signed players that haven't done anything, haven't been in the Premier League. We signed a couple of youngsters in Jed Spence and Udogie, and obviously Udogie's gone back out on loan. Spence, I think they were reviewing whether they were going to put him on loan. There's a possibility he could go out in January. I'd say that's more a viable option. Obviously there were some others in there, and we'll talk about the signings in a bit. We'll get through what Conte said and we'll review that. He was asked if his side were an advantage for completing most of their signings before the pre-season tour. So what he had to say to that is, if you sign a player for 80 million or 100 million on the last day of the transfer window, you have a big advantage because it means you're signing a top player. You can sign players also for free or on loan, and it is a different situation. I want to be very clear on that. I think we did what we could in the right time because the vision was very clear about the money to spend, about getting the free players or on loan, because we spend money on 2 players. So he's talking about Richarlison and Yves Bissouma, the bigger money, and other players on loan or also for free. Conte says Spurs are progressing well within the constraints of the current budget, but admits they face an uphill task of keeping up with their rivals. He said, I see other squads of the top teams and there is too much distance, he said ahead of our visit to Fulham today. To be competitive and to fight, to be a title contender and to try and get in the Champions League, you need at least 3 transfer windows more to improve and to be in the same level as the other clubs. He added, I'm sure that we are going in the right way for the capacity of the club at this moment to invest money. We have to be realistic to understand that there are different clubs who can invest different money and other clubs that can invest normal money. For sure, the path is hard because of this aspect. We did the right things, but we have just started. If someone thinks we have completed the situation, we are very far from this. Spurs, so this isn't what he said now, but Spurs also spent a combined 35 million on the signings of Jed Spence from Middlesbrough and Destiny Udogie from Udinese. The latter returning to Italy on loan, obviously to continue his development with the view of securing 2 wing-backs for the future. Because as we know, Conte's system relies heavily on wing-backs. So if you've got 2 that he thinks are good enough that could come in later, but they're getting game time throughout the season in teams that are playing with a wing-back system, fantastic. But Conte feels that while Spence is a perfect prospect for Tottenham, if the club are to be competitive this season, they need more investment in proven players. And I think what he's saying there is basically sign the proven players and send Spence back out on loan, because now Spence isn't on loan. He's still at the club, in the squad. He's going to be learning under Conte, but the frustration will be of his lack of game time. So he then said, if you talk about being competitive and wanting to win, for sure you need other signings. This has to be clear because otherwise we have confusion, and I want to be very clear on this aspect. So from that, me personally, I don't know about everybody else out there, but I've taken away 3 things that Conte is saying. And one is to the fans, one's to the players, and one's to the board. So to the fans, he's saying, don't get carried away as fans if we start to do well and we don't finish as high as you'd hoped for. We haven't got the same quality as City or Liverpool or maybe even Chelsea. I know they've not had the best start, but you'd expect that they're going to come good throughout the season and they'll reinvest in January if things aren't going well, because they've got new owners that are not Russian, so they can do that now. So he's just basically saying to us, like, don't judge the season too much because we're in a process and we'll get there. To the players, I think he's saying that he's set a challenge to them by coming out and stating that as a squad, they're not ready to compete for the Premier League title. It is a risk to come out and say that stuff publicly, and it will go one of a few ways. The players will either ignore it because they'll understand that he's just saying what he needs to say to get more of an investment. They could be hurt by it, take it a bit personally and get their heads down, but I don't think they will because he won't allow it. Or they take it as a challenge to prove that they are good enough as a squad and individuals to take us on to trophies and a title. And I hope it is the latter that they take from that. Now to the board, the most important one. He's saying, give me what I want now. I know what I'm doing. Players for the future are great, but I need players for now as well. We were told of that war chest that we had, the 150 million, which yes, we did spend more than. But we also sold players, and you'd think the player sales then go on top of that 150 million budget and increase it. We also have players go out on loan, so we're getting loan fees from them, and the wages are off the books as well. Therefore, we probably could have signed a couple more, and on the last day we maybe could have got some players in on loan. And after COVID, there's still some teams that haven't recovered. I know based on Premier League spending, it was massive, the amount that Premier League club actually spent in this window. But if you look around the rest of Europe and around the world, other clubs did not spend anywhere near as much as the Premier League. We absolutely dwarfed all the leagues in other areas. So that tells you financially they're all still really struggling. So those teams would have needed the extra funds. You could have tempted them, taken some players off them. Loan fees, great. Wages, that is the big thing for some of these European clubs. They want the wages off their wage bill for the season. So we probably could have got a couple of loan deals done with the option to buy. That is something that Paratici has become good at so far with Spurs. We did it with Romero. We're doing it with Kulusevski, where you loan them for a long period of time, 18 months, and then you have the option to buy them for a certain fee. But if you buy them earlier, you get a reduced fee. It's fantastic. Why didn't we do more of that? So I don't know. But to the board, he's basically saying, you can give me these youngsters, but I want them back out on loan or just in the development squad. But I want players. He wants quality in now. And if, we see that in Perisic, 33-year-old, soon to be 34. Experience. He needs players to get us over the line now to help instill that winning mentality into the youngsters and the other players. So let's have a look at our window. And we're only really going to talk about first team players or players pushing for first team, because I could talk about all the youngsters that went out on loan or went out the door, people we released and whatnot, but I'm going to focus on the others. So let's talk about our outgoings first. Bergwijn went off to Ajax, 28 million. I'd have preferred to see him go out on loan, if I'm honest. And I think there's a lot of Spurs fans that agree with me, but also there's a lot of fans that wanted him out of the club. For me, Bergwijn, massive talent. He's shown that going back to Ajax. Obviously not as tough a league, so he was always going to do well there. But confidence sky high, playing well. 28 million I think is too cheap as well for a player of his quality, but based on the amount of game time he had, we couldn't get away with asking for more. So I'm gutted. I think a loan deal would have benefited us more, and then we could have put the option to buy, which means Conte can then say at the end of the season, look, I want to look at him next pre-season and see where we go. Cameron Carter-Vickers, his loan deal to Celtic was made permanent for about 6 to 6.5 million. You may think that that's a bit cheap actually for a decent centre back, but he's not played enough football for Tottenham. He's been a journeyman in terms of the loan, but he's earned us a lot more money. So when we say we're losing him for 6.5 million, the amount he's earned us in loan fees over the years to Championship clubs has definitely boosted it up. So I wish him the best. Celtic's a good place for him. He had a good season last season. He's going to be playing. He's going to be, up there in the league. He's going to win trophies. He's got the chance to play in Europe, and that's great for him. Tanguy Ndombele, another high-profile player. He's gone out on loan to Napoli, and of course he scored whilst he was out there. It was always going to happen. Had a torrid loan last season, didn't help him, but it'll be interesting to see what happens come the end of the season, and if Napoli want to keep him. And my views on Tanguy, one of the most talented players that you will ever see. Declan Rice has come out and said it about how good Ndombele is, but there's obviously an attitude problem there, so off he goes. Jack Clark, he's now gone to Sunderland permanently for an undisclosed fee. Was never going to fit in at Spurs. I think it was just a youngster that did well at Leeds. We got excited, signed him, sent him back on loan there. They weren't interested in giving him game time, and he's just kind of plummeted ever since. He doesn't fit our system, no matter which manager we've had in. So, yeah, happy that he can get his career back on track. I just feel he wasted a bit of time coming to Spurs. Giovanni Lo Celso, he's gone back out on loan to Villarreal. Wish him the best. Great player, just maybe doesn't quite suit the Premier League, or he might do a bit later on. But again, another loan deal, because we either want the money back we paid for him, which was going to be hard with his in and out game time at Spurs, the injuries that he picks up. So a loan deal, give him a chance to shine in European competition, hopefully will boost that fee back up. Destiny Udogie, who obviously was an incoming, but he's also an outgoing because he's gone straight back out on loan to Udinese to continue the development. Probably the best place for him. He knows everybody, he knows the system. He's going to get good game time there. Makes sense perfectly. Harry Winks, homegrown Harry Winks. That player that I talk about it all the time, tore Real Madrid a new one in the Champions League seasons ago. Has gone on loan to Sampdoria. It's one that actually upsets me because I like Harry Winks as a person. He comes across very good, very well. He has all the ability in there, but for some reason he's just struggled over the last few years. And I'm absolutely gutted. I hope he can go out there and reignite his career. And if that means his career is away from Spurs in the future, then I think sensible fans out there will be happy to see him do well. It's just such a shame, really. Was a great passer of the ball. Nice guy. But, it is what it is. Hopefully he can get back on track now with some game time. Sergio Reguilon has gone out on loan to Atletico Madrid. Decent move for him. Back in a league that he knows well. Obviously, he's at a different club in Madrid this time. But maybe a manager like Simeone can really get him back on track. It's a hard one because he came in his first season. I thought he did fairly well for Spurs. But he's had a couple of injuries that kept him out. He had to battle with Ben Davies out there, then Ryan Sessegnon, even Perisic is here now. So he was never going to progress. He was tried. Conte gave him a decent chance to show what he can do, but it was weird because he first came to Spurs, his crossing was really good, and it just died down out of nowhere. Lost confidence, I don't know. But good luck to him. Joe Rodon was another first team player to go out on loan. He's gone to Rennes. in the French league, and that was a weird one. I thought that he'd have been keen to stay in the Premier League to prove what he can do at the top level, but however, that's the loan move that he's gone with. I think Steve Cooper probably could have had him at Nottingham Forest, but hey ho, it is what it is. He's gone there. Wish him the best. Still, I think it's a strange one. Any time that an English player goes out to the French league, I'm confused. Spain, okay, but I think English players, to benefit the most, if you're going out of the Premier League, you should either go to the Championship, to a team fighting for promotion, or Germany. They're the best two leagues to go to that are close enough to Premier League football to develop. Then two upcoming stars, Troy Parrott, obviously after his successful League One loan last season, out on loan to Preston in the Championship. He's finding it harder. He will get there, I promise you, but he's coming up against a lot tougher defenders now. The Championship is a very, very difficult league. I know a lot of us out there won't know because we haven't had to play in it, but I can assure you it is a tough league physically. It's a long season. And then the other one, Dane Scarlett, on loan at Portsmouth, doing fairly well so far. He's got a goal, he's got an assist, so, you know, all good on that front. Apart from Brian Hill, who didn't get his move, which I think was very harsh. The other one's probably Tanganga that will come away frustrated. But let's talk about Brian Hill. As far as we were aware, his loan move to Valencia was about 95 to 99% done, or so Gattuso thought. And they've actually ended up going for... I can't remember his name. Doesn't matter. Clivert, that's it. They've gone for Clivert instead, and they had to do that on the last day, so that would have been pushed through quite quickly. But yeah, it's a bit of a strange one for Brian Hill. I don't understand why we haven't let him go, because I know we were looking at Carrasco. Conte did say for anyone to leave from that first team squad, we would have to be bringing somebody else in. So it just means to me that we were really struggling to get another player in to match or be better than Brian Hill's quality. And if it was only going to match his quality, no point anyway, might as well keep him. So that's why he didn't go. And then the other one, Tanganga, he was linked with so many clubs. AC Milan were the ones linked with him heavily for like the whole of the window. Premier League clubs he'd been linked with. I think a couple of Championship clubs were looking at him, but we were never, ever going to entertain him going to the Championship. I don't know the reason why we haven't let him go, because centre-back, obviously we've got, you know, we play with a back three, so we're inundated with centre-backs, but I think it's the fact that he wants cover for all three of them. So Davies gets injured, then the backup is Longley. Dyer gets injured. Well, Roden was meant to be his backup, but he's obviously gone on loan. So that means if Dyer gets injured, Tanganga is probably his backup, or Romero goes into the centre, or Sanchez does. Romero injury, obviously Sanchez covers that one. So it does leave you quite short, because he wants two minimum in every position. So that's essentially why Tanganga hasn't gone out, because they probably felt that they couldn't get the centre-back they wanted to bring in. And if they were going to bring one in, I think it was going to be another one on a permanent or a loan to buy. So they would have wanted a top quality. I know we were looking at Gvardiol. That one didn't get done, obviously, because of the money involved. Like, they're asking for so much money, and it's not a guarantee. And a lot of these clubs weren't going to entertain the loan to buy. So that's the reason why. So Tanganga is with us, and hopefully in the cup games he will get some game time along with some of the other guys. Like Sessegnon's obviously going to get a decent amount of game time, although the last few games he has opted with Perisic from the start. So we shall see. But that's our window. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you happy? Are you disappointed? Sorry, they were just the outgoings. Let's talk about the incomings. Richarlison came in from Everton for a massive fee. It was kind of the window of the Brazilians, wasn't it? It was either going to be Richarlison, Jesus or Rafinha. They were linked with clubs galore. So we ended up with Richarlison. Jesus obviously went to Arsenal, and then Barcelona got Rafinha. All fairly decent players. Jesus is obviously having a great time at Arsenal. Jesus wouldn't have made sense for us because he wouldn't have got all that game time, because he operates better through the centre than he does out wide. Kane obviously plays through the centre. So he'd have been in the same situation he was at Manchester City, but without being at a club at the level of Manchester City. So what's the point in downgrading the club to not win the trophies? Like, I get it. from his point of view. But Richarlison so far, I think he's been good. He's feisty, he gives 100%. He does wind people up. And he's a player that I always kind of... There's part of you that dislikes him because of that side of his game. But when he's on your team, I tell you, you quickly love him. So he came in for a big chunk of money. The Romero move has finally been made permanent from Atalanta for 45 million. I know it kind of feels like he was already our player, but that's because it was a long-term loan. Then Yves Bissouma from Brighton. I don't understand why there wasn't more competition for him, because over the last couple of seasons, everybody in the top end of the Premier League has been linked with him. So that was a massive one to get in for about 26 mil. Udogie from Udinese for about 16 million. Bright young wing back, has got a great future in the game. Probably one of the most talented fullbacks in world football of his age right now. Jed Spence, another highly rated fullback. We got him in from Borough. He was obviously on loan at Forest last season. Did really well to help him get promoted. They wanted him back and couldn't get him because we are Tottenham. Ivan Perisic, a massive experienced player on a free transfer. Huge international for Croatia. Scored in a World Cup final. Experience of trophies at some of the biggest clubs in world football. Then Fraser Forster came in for free as well from Southampton. Great stature of a goalkeeper, good shot stopper, great experience of the Premier League. He's had Champions League football, so that's great. Then Clement Longley from Barcelona on loan, somebody that had a real bright future, that stagnated a little bit in the last couple of seasons with a couple of injuries and Barcelona's dip in form, which I think affected the whole squad. So that's a good one. And then another one for the future, we'll finish off with Lancashire from Sheffield United, young striker, was released from Arsenal. Could it be another Harry Kane story? We'll see. But all in all, I think that's a good transfer window. Not a great one. I think we could have done with, yes, another top flight centre-back. Midfield, I think we're okay with. But yeah, you look in there. Defensively, Romero was there, but we've made him permanent. So that's a defender sorted. You've got two wing-backs for the future. You've got a great backup goalkeeper. You brought in a first-team full-back in terms of Perisic. You bought the midfielder in with Yves Bissouma. You bought the attacker in with Richarlison. You bought a centre-back in on loan in terms of Longley. And then a striker for the future. Well, actually, when you look at it like that, I think we've covered a lot of ground there. But because you've got the 5 substitutions now, teams are looking at signing more players. So yeah, we probably could have done with 1 or 2 more. Like Carrasco would have been a great signing. I'd have loved that, because I think Son just needs as much competition as possible now. The luxury of Richarlison is he can play anywhere in that front line. As we saw, he's come on for Son. He's come on for Kulusevski. He's played in a 2 up top with Kane. So yeah, lovely window. Could have done with a couple more. Maybe we'll add a couple more in January, depending on where we're at and how the season's progressing. I'm sure if we're doing well, Levy will want to say, hey, we don't need to sign anymore. We're doing a great job. Conte will say, but we need to keep it up for the rest of the season. Give me more players. So that's our transfer window. Hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment. And until next time, come on you Spurs.